we are making a kale and chickpea hash with a warm bacon vinaigrette and fried egg. It is the easiest thing to do on a weeknight, and it's also really one of the most expensive, elegant meals you can put out. Alright, here's what we have. We have some kale, and you want to be able to soak the kale in a really nice tub of water in order to get all the dirt off. Now the trick to getting all the dirt off your kale is to add maybe 2 tablespoons of vinegar in there. That's going to make all the kale sink to the bottom and all of the good greens rise to the top. So we're going to let that soak in this really nice cold water for just a couple minutes. Okay. In the meantime, we're going to start slicing up our bacon, our gratuitous amounts of bacon. This is 2 pounds of bacon purchased from Windmill Meadows Farm. It is grass-fed pork, so it is absolutely delicious, really buttery, awesome. Now if you have a pair of scissors, like a really nice big pair of scissors, that's typically what you want to use to slice up the bacon. You notice how it's kind of hard to kind of dig through this fat. Ultimately, it's going to be flavor. Now, this is a salt and smoke cured bacon. You can tell by the pinkness of it. If you get a smoked only bacon, you'll see it's mostly gray. It's more of like a smoked pork with a fat content. But you always want to try to find a bacon that has 75% fat to 25% meat, because that fat is really going to be the flavor. So we're going to go ahead and add this bacon to a pan on medium-high heat. You don't want to get it too high, because then the bacon will burn and you're not going to extract all the fat that you want to extract. Alright, so this is going to be in this pan for about 10 minutes. It's going to render down really well. Okay. And yeah, if you're not in a professional kitchen, you can go ahead and use your hands. And then wash them. Okay, so now that the bacon is rendering, we want to go ahead and drain our kale. See how all that fine particulate matter is kind of sinking to the bottom of the sink? That's what you want to see, especially when you're dealing with organic greens, because organic means that it can definitely attract the bugs. So this kale is going to drain for just a little while. In the meantime, we're going to chop up this delicious cheese. This is a sun-dried tomato basil cheddar from Windmill Meadows Farm. Really, really tasty. I personally like it as a snack. And come on, let's just be honest here. We want nice, big chunks of cheese. For me, the easiest thing to do when you're having a party or when you're cooking for multiple people is have a really nice little cheese plate, something for people to enjoy, kind of tease their palate a little bit. This is a really nice, sharp, sun-dried tomato basil cheddar. So while that bacon is rendering, you see how big this kale is. Now, if you're using it for smaller applications, you want to remove this rib. I'll show you how to do that, but because we're kind of going rustic style, it's really not necessary for today. But to remove the rib off of kale, really just chop around it. Right? And hold your knife like a pro. Now, the trick to putting together a really nice hash, which is really just a combination of things that are sauteed and thrown together, really, really tasty. The key to that is to keep all of your ingredients at about the same size. So you'll notice, as we're sauteing our bacon, which we're going to add to our kale, the piece of the bacon is roughly the size of the kale. That's really important. Not only is it going to cook evenly, you're going to get a similar mouthfeel. It's all going to come together. If you have big chunks of kale versus tiny chunks of bacon, you're going to notice more kale than you are bacon. You want it all to be kind of, you know, homogeneous, so to speak. Okay, so we're going to leave the ribs on our kale, just because it's going to add a really nice textural element to it. So just rough chop it at the same size as the bacon, about half-inch pieces. We already removed all the really nice dirty bits, so we're not going to get any grit when we're taking a big bite of this delicious, delicious kale. Now, kale is one of those vegetables that its flavor varies wildly depending on the season. If you're getting kale early in the spring or early in the fall, you're going to get a sweeter kale with a more delicate texture. If you're getting it late summer, like we're getting it right now, it's going to be a little bit rougher, which means that you really want to find a braising agent that's going to suit that. So what we're going to do is continue rendering off this bacon. And you can kind of see how that really nice bacon fat is kind of accumulating on the bottom. That's the flavor. That's what we're going to use to build our warm bacon vinaigrette. So I'm preheating the pan that we're going to put the kale in. And even though this bacon isn't totally rendered, we have enough fat to throw in it, and it's weekday night. So we want to make sure that we're saving time. So I'm going to go ahead and add some of this bacon fat into the pan that we're going to braise our kale. Add a little bit of olive oil into it. And then we're going to add this kale. Fresh ground pepper. A lot bit of fresh ground pepper. Let's taste it, it's delicious. A little bit of salt. We want to take a little bit of that vinegar add that to the kale. That's going to help break down some of the fibrous elements of the kale and give it a little bit of tanginess. Alright, so you notice how much more fat has rendered out of this bacon? All that wonderful goodness. Now, if you have more bacon fat than you're willing to part with for this particular meal, go ahead and put it in a jar, save it for later. It'll congeal if you stick it in the fridge, but ultimately it's going to put a lot of flavor into anything you do. Now take a look at this kale. You see how some of it is kind of starting to turn that really nice dark brown? That's kind of what you want with the kale. At this point, you can more or less turn it off and just kind of let it continue to cook inside the pan. Okay, so our kale is just kind of finishing cooking with the heat off. And this is really important. Now my biggest problem is that I like to taste my food, which inherently means that I'm full before I serve it. But I like to make sure that the flavor's right. And this is awesome. But a little more salt, a little more fresh cracked pepper, and let's dig a little bit of cayenne out of the pantry, because a little bit of spice never hurt anyone. That's about maybe half a teaspoon, not that much. So kale's just chilling. Bacon's about halfway done. You can kind of see it's starting to get that really nice caramelized bacony color. You notice how the pieces are about a quarter of the size of what they were before. This will probably just take another 5 minutes at the most. Okay, so this bacon's pretty much ready to rock. The slices have reduced to about 1/8 of the size is when we started. That's because all of that delicious fat went into this delicious liquid right here. Ask your cardiologist, it's awesome. So we're gonna take a pan with some paper towels. We're gonna go ahead and drain this bacon. By taking the bacon out of the bacon fat, as soon as it's ready, you're making sure that it stays crispy. So nobody wants soggy bacon. Make sure that it's nice and even on that paper towel. Perfect. That is just the perfect colored bacon. Alright, so what are we going to do with all this bacon grease? We're going to take perfectly healthy chickpeas. We're going to throw them in there. Now, I'm not adverse to taking chickpeas straight out of the can. They're a firmer bean than, say, like a black bean or a red bean. You notice how you get black beans out of the can? Tend to have a lot of mushy bits right at the bottom. Chickpeas will mostly maintain their shape if canned, so I'm okay with taking that shortcut. Now we have another pan preheating right here. This is for our fried egg. We definitely want a little bit of that bacony goodness. Right in that pan. Share the wealth, right? Before we start to grease fire. Okay. Now, the key to frying a perfectly good sunny side up egg is to make sure that your eggs are at room temperature. Very, very important, because if they're cold, basically immediately cold versus hot, it's kind of like going from air conditioning to like 110-degree heat. Your body's going to feel not so good. So keeping your eggs at room temperature will make it much better adaptable to the heat of your pan. Go ahead and gather it up. See how it's seasoning up very, very nicely. Alright, so you're getting a nice brown on these chickpeas. Go ahead and season them down. Then salt and pepper. For this, we're going to use a little bit of garlic powder. Or a lot bigger garlic powder. Either way. These eggs are about ready to flip. See how they're kind of brown on the edges? Now after you flip them the first time, if you like your eggs runny, which for this dish is ideal, you really only need them on the pan for another 10-15 seconds. season, you notice how we are seasoning every step of the way. Perfect. Awesome. All right, eggs are going to chill. Now these chickpeas are nice and browned, so we're going to go ahead and take them and stick them in our kale. Awesome. This really nice bacon fat. I think that we might be done with it, but we're not. Great thing about pork is you can do all sorts of stuff to it, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So we're going to take this bacon fat, and go ahead and drain it. It's something that can stand up to that kind of heat. You don't want to do that with glass, because there's a good chance the glass might seize and break on you and make a bacony, lardy mess all over your countertop. And always clean your pans while they're still scalding hot, because you're getting all those good bits right out of there. I'll save you some elbow grease later. Okay, so we're going to turn our bacon, which we're going to pour into the kale and the chickpeas. We're going to save just a little bit of that to sprinkle on top of our meal. So we're going to take about 3/4 of the bacon and dump it straight into the hash. Turn that back on medium-low just to reheat. You notice how all of the bits are about the same size, so they're incorporating really well together. Okay. So we have our nice bacon fat. And this is a Meyer lemon. Obviously not grown in Washington County, but it is something that is only in season in the early spring and early fall. It's kind of like a regular lemon, only has more floral flavor. It goes really, really well with greens. So we're going to roll the lemon around to release all the really good juices. Slice it in half, and then to keep the seeds from going into your bacon, go ahead and squeeze it right into your finger, as long as you don't have like a paper cut or something. Okay. Looking mighty tasty. Let's test the kale, see how it tastes. A little bit more salt. A little bit more pepper. Alright, so we got this Meyer lemon with the bacon. And I'm just going to whisk that together until it's a nice solid color. This is called an emulsion. Now for this purpose, we're going to keep whisking in a little bit of olive oil. See that nice consistent color on that? That's what you want. Alright, and now we are ready to plate. Take some of your hash, depends on how hungry you are. Still piping hot. Take one of your beautiful fried eggs, stick that right on top. Almost forgot to season this. Take some of this vinaigrette, just drizzle it right on top. There you go.